If Guillermo del Toro directs a film, I am going to watch it. And that is why I watched Hellboy. I had no real interest in watching Hellboy until I fell in love with Del Toro's directing style, and, I just thought, well, I'm going to see it. And this is a lot funnier than I expected it to be. Not that it's a comedy, it's pitched here as an action fantasy. I'm not the biggest fan of the kind of superhero genre, but I'm always willing to give it a chance, and that's certainly kind of the open mind I went into Hellboy with, and I really quite enjoyed it. So the description from IMDb is as follows. A demon, raised from infancy after being conjured by and rescued from the Nazis, grows up to become a defender against the forces of darkness. So I was going to say it's a pretty stereotypical superhero story, good versus evil, but when you bring the Nazis into it, it definitely gives it an additional dimension. I have to say, I don't know how true this is to the source material. I'm not sure what the comic strips are like. I haven't read them. I don't think I ever will. Maybe one day, but at the moment it's not something that's on my radar. But certainly the way the narrative is told in this film, I find it quite enjoyable, and it's something that I actually found quite engaging and really interesting and very well developed, and the character of Hellboy seemed to fit very nicely within that narrative, which sounds like it's common sense, but I'm sure you'll agree that there are often films where the narrative is really interesting, but the protagonist just doesn't seem to fit quite right. But actually here, I think it works really well. Hellboy as a character is very likeable. He's very easy to get on with. He's got that perfect blend of looking quite menacing and actually being quite entertaining. Ron Perlman, of course, plays Hellboy, and his performance is just brilliant. Visually, he looks fantastic, really, truly fantastic. I don't know why this wasn't nominated for any kind of an Oscar for makeup or costume or anything, because I feel like that's a missed opportunity. Casting as well is really great. John Hurt is in it, and Selma Blair, both of whom are brilliant. I honestly cannot fault the film. Now, that opinion is, as I said, coming from somebody who's not the biggest superhero fan or sci-fi fantasy fan. So if you are a big fan of that kind of film, then maybe, and perhaps understandably, your opinion would be quite different. That was a mouthful. And I'd be very interested to know that. If you watched it expecting one thing, but it turns out it just didn't deliver what you'd wanted, let me know. I think it would be quite interesting to hear different perspectives. But for me, as somebody who can take or leave that kind of film usually, but who really loves Del Toro's films, Hellboy was really rather impressive.